Hey, Nicole Roberts Jones here, and welcome to another episode of the Meaningful Work Podcast. Now, this is part two of navigating career transitions. And let me tell you off of the bat, if you haven't listened to part one, go stop me now and go listen to part one. What I'm going to talk about here builds off of what I shared there. And it's always going to be important, those of you that are new to me, when I have a series, I am really building off. And dare I tell you, the reason I give you a pause in between to do the work is because that work is also paramount to you learning and being able to implement what I'm teaching in the next part. So if you haven't done it, now's your chance to go do it. Put me on pause, go do it, come on back when you're done. So we talked about in part one, really, again, navigating career transitions. Part one was about releasing status quo. And here's why I want you to go do your homework. A part of your homework that I gave you, and by the way, let me just put it up on the screen now. And those of you that are listening, where you go get the workbook for free that I'm gifting you in each part of this series. There'll be a part one, a part two, and a part three of the work. Powerinyourpivot.com is where you go and get it. The reason and I'm not going to guarantee every single series that I'm going to give you some kind of work to do or a workbook. I'm always going to give you work to do because, again, if you listen to these episodes and you don't implement anything, it's a waste of your time. The whole purpose, in my humble opinion, of listening to any kind of podcast is to learn something different, do something different, shift your mindset. I can keep going. So, can't guarantee I'm always going to give you a workbook, but the first few episodes here in the podcast that I've been doing, I know I've been giving you workbooks, but listen, if I have the tools, I'm always going to share them. So, with that, releasing status quo. As part of the homework, I asked you to answer a question. One of many things I asked you to answer. What do you really want? And the reason I stopped our episode there is because I didn't want to go into what I'm going to teach here, and I would have started. And here's what I want to say. For successful women, being able to really say what you really want, not what you think is okay, what you have permission to want. No, what your heart desires. See, I believe God drops desires in our heart because we are meant to do it, be it, have it, but you have to be willing to go and get it. The first step in doing that is writing it down and naming it and claiming it. Listen, I was reading in a devotional once and it said this: nowhere in the Bible is ambition condemned. You heard me? Nowhere in the Bible is ambition condemned. Now, selfish ambition is certainly warned against, but ambition for the sake of God's glory is not only condoned, but it is commended. See, it took some ambition for Noah to build the ark. It took some ambition for David to kill Goliath. It took some ambition for Esther to become queen. And we're going to talk about Esther today. It also took some ambition for Oprah to start her own network. It took some ambition for Jeff Bezos to start Amazon in his garage. Do I need to keep going, or are you going to get the point? There comes a time in your career where your job just may no longer be big enough for your gift. And you have to be willing to say the thing that's rumbling inside your soul, even if it scares you. You know, what I've learned in my own journey is when something's rumbling in your soul and it scares you a little bit, it's because God is requiring a new level of faith. So I'm going to build off of what we talked about in part one, but really the reason I wanted to bring this up at the beginning of this is I want you to give yourself permission to do that thing you greatly desire. I want to set you free from perception or judgment or anything that's held you at status quo. And so to do that, to build off of what we talked about in our last session, today we're talking about eliminating what's holding you back in your career transition. Eliminating what's holding you back. Now, I shared this Bible verse in part one, but I forgot to read my Tony Evans about it. The thief, this is John 10:10, by the way. The thief does not come except to steal and to kill and to destroy. I have come that they may have life and that they may have it abundantly. Now, this is Jesus talking, by the way. And my favorite, Tony, says this. Sorry, I need to put on my reader's job, but I'm in denial. Thieves come to destroy. But Jesus came to give life and to give it in abundance. Jesus doesn't want you merely to possess eternal life, but also to possess the full experience of life. Think about what a full experience of life is. I think I said this in another episode. I'm going to say it now. I remember when I first started on this purpose-focused journey and really understanding my purpose and going after it, I was kind of in a struggle mode. I was like, robbing Peter to pay Paul pretty much, right? I'm being so serious. I'm not gonna go into the story now. I didn't think I was gonna tell it, but I want you to get this. I remember that I was going to speak. I was a speaker. I knew I was called to speak, but I would go speak for free. I'd fly myself there and put myself up. I was doing too much. And so I had hired a coach, and a coach started to coach me on and really understanding my worth. And as soon as I got clear, as soon as I got comfortable, as soon as I got uncompromising, the first place to call me was a church to come and speak. And I'm like, really, Lord, why you got to test me like this? And I remember this like it was yesterday. The first lady asked me my fee. I told her my fee and I hushed. And she said, okay. Do you want to stay at the Embassy Suites or do you like the Marriott or the Hilton? What's your preferred hotel? What? So all the time before that, I had been in status quo. I had been playing small. I had been living in perception. When I released that to become the version of me that God had created and ordained me to be, I began to realize, and that's when actually God dropped this Bible verse because I said, Lord, really? Really? And that's when God dropped John 10:10 in my spirit. Then it becomes a still kill and destroy. The enemy wants you to second guess yourself. He wants you to struggle. Listen, God said, the second thing God said to me in that moment is struggle and service should never coexist. Why would I want to give you a gift and want you to struggle to do it? And I'm not just talking about struggling financially. I'm talking about struggling emotionally, struggling, listen, because you're overwhelmed. None of that is of God. So if you're any of those places, I want you to know you're in the right place, but it's time to do something different. And so I want you to get this. The enemy wants you to be afraid. He wants you to stay in the place you're in. He wants you to focus on comfort and not go after your conviction. But God has come for you to have life and have it more abundantly. So you've got to be willing to do this. Now, this was the biggest lesson I've learned. This is Romans 12:2 that says, and do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. By the way, those of you that are listening over on audio, come on over to YouTube because I'm sharing slides. YouTube is nrjnetwork.com. NRJ, my initials, nrjnetwork.com. So listen. Those of you that are looking at this on the screen, you see that I have highlighted con and trans. So do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So listen, I looked up all these words, y'all. So the word form, okay, because it's conform and transform. Form means a particular way in which a thing exists or appears, a manifestation. Okay. Now, looking at the first section of the word con means to persuade someone to do or believe something, typically by use of deception. Trans means on or to the other side of, across, beyond. So God wants you to transform and get on the other side of who you already are. But the enemy wants you to conform and stay where you are, playing small. Because, yeah, you might be playing big according to the world standards, but when you have something drumming in you, that's your next level. That means that where you are is small in comparison. Y'all get that? So, an example of a woman that didn't stay conformed but transformed is Esther. Favorite girl, if you're around me, you're going to always hear me say something about Esther because I love me some Esther. And so, quick Cliff Note version. If you haven't read Esther's story, go read it. So, Esther is an orphan. Her parents passed, and her some scholars say it was her uncle, some say cousin, some Bible scholars say cousin, some say uncle. I'm gonna say uncle. Her uncle Mordecai takes her in. Now Mordecai works in the palace, and he overhears. Ear hustling. He hears that the king is looking for a new queen, and it's a whole story of why the other queen gets out. Not going to tell that now. And so to make a long story short, Mordecai says, Esther, you've got to run. But listen, the problem is Esther is a Jew. So her original name is Hadassah. He changes her name to Esther so that they don't know that she's a Jew because a Jew cannot become queen. So the king starts calling all the women from all over the nation, kind of like an episode of The Bachelor, to run to be his wife. And to make a long story short, Esther wins. Okay. So the thing that I love about Esther's story is now she's queen. She's in the palace, but Mordecai, ear hustling again, hears that the king's right-hand man, Haman, wants to kill all the Jews. Problem is, the king doesn't know that his wife is a Jew. And that's when I didn't pull these Bible verses up. I don't know why I didn't put the Bible verses up when I knew I was going to tell Esther's story. Y'all, hold on, I'm pulling it up. So that's when this, which is the most famous Bible verse in Esther, this is when this comes into play. Sorry, y'all that are listening. My allergies have been off the chain this year. So if you hear me, I'm clearing my throat, all of that, I'm apologize ahead of time. So it's in Esther, the fourth chapter. So when Mordecai learns what the Haman has up his sleeve, he goes to Esther. Okay. Hold on, I'm trying to find it. Okay. Hold on, y'all. Because I told you the Cliff Note version. I want to read all of that. Okay. So Mordecai had to send a message to Esther because he's a Jew. He can't go just talk to Esther. So they're sending messages back and forth. Okay. So here's what the message he sends back to her. Okay. So Mordecai told Esther, "Do not think in your heart that you will escape in the king's palace any more than all the other Jews." This is 4:13, by the way. Now I'm getting ready to read 4:14. For if you remain completely silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place. But you and your father's house yet will perish. You will die. Yet, who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? And so many of you, who knows if you came to your industry because you're going to be the game changer and it's time for you to shift to move into that new role to shift the industry. Maybe it's the company and it's time for you to shift roles. Whatever that is for you, maybe this is your for such a time as this moment. So, what I'm going to walk you through in this episode, part two, are the three musts to eliminate what's holding you back. Because, of course, Esther could have said, you know what, I'm not going to say anything. I got servants, I got people peeling fruit for me, fanning me all day long, dressing me. Why, but what Esther chose to do was stand in the gap for her people. Okay. So the first thing you got to understand is disruption is the start of promotion. Disruption is the start of promotion. See, God has to disrupt your comfort. Think about people like Martin Luther King. Do you guys realize that Martin Luther King was 24 years old when he started the civil rights movement? 24, he just got married. He had just gotten a church as a new pastor, newly married pastor. He goes to a meeting like everybody else just to probably volunteer and help out. And they elect him the head of the movement. He was 24. Disruption. Or how about Colin Kaepernick? Y'all remember he took a knee? Disruption. How about Rosa Parks? Disruption. I could talk about all kind of people. Michelle Obama got disrupted when her husband became president, but we know what they did in office for all of us. Esther disrupted. David, Noah, Abraham, who I talked about last time, his comfort got disrupted. So you need to understand God is going to disrupt your normal, your status quo to go after your next level, to go after your breathtaking future, to go after your abundantly above all. The question is, are you going to choose your comfort or are you going to choose your conviction? So what did Esther decide? Esther says, go gather all the Jews. This is now 4:16 who are present and fast for me, neither eat nor drink for 3 days, night or day. My maids and I will do likewise. And I will go to the king, which is against the law. And if I perish, I perish. So she decides to go for it. The thing I want you to get here in me reading that is the second step is you need spiritual direction. You got to use your GPS, your God's plan system. I love that the very next thing that Esther says here is go pray. Y'all go pray. I'ma pray, and I'm gonna see God's direction on how to do this. She didn't rush the plan. She waited for the direction. I think sometimes we get so excited about what's next that we just jump into it. And I get that you want to jump in faith, but also listen, God is a God of strategy. So he's not going to ever suggest that you have stupid faith. Ah, I said it. He's going to want you to have strategic faith. Part of the reason why I give you work to do in these episodes so that you can start to create the strategy you need to go after what's next for you, right? So prayer really opens it. Listen, you'll always hear me say this. I'm always going to give you methodology, but only God can give you revelation, and you need both. You need revelation and methodology. What's that Bible verse? Faith without works is dead. So revelation is the faith part. Methodology is the works. You need both. When God told Noah to build the ark, God didn't tell Noah how to build it. Noah had to go figure it out. Methodology. So the place you're in, you may need methodology, but that methodology needs to be added with revelation. Now, listen, this is the thing that I love when I think about Esther. So let's talk about Esther versus Eve. Now, y'all know who Eve is. Miss got deceived. Remember, con means what? Let me pull out my notes that I moved over here. Con means, where did my con go? Hold on, y'all. I start moving my papers around. Oh, here it is. Because I have a limited space on my paper, on my table. So con means persuade to do or believe something. That's exactly what the serpent did to Eve, and she had the nerve to believe it. So she got conformed. Esther said, let me sit and pray. So had Eve said, let me pray about what this crazy serpent is saying, or let me go take this to God, she would have been transformed. See, sometimes we focus on what we can see. Like, oh, maybe he's right because that's what I can see. Maybe this next opportunity is right because this is what I can see. Maybe this next job is the right thing. I remember I had a client who had this really huge desire to be a journalist, but her family talked her into conned her into going to law school. So she was moving through the ranks of her law field and then got to a place where she was offered partner. And she realized she had a decision to make. Do I go up into partner or do I go out and become a journalist? Going up would be conforming. Going out would be transforming. What did she do? She transformed. But it took a lot of sitting in prayer and getting clear on the direction God had for her. The same thing that Esther did, the same thing that I'm inviting you into right now. I'm going to give you homework to support you with that, so don't worry, right? But again, if Eve had taken her little spoiled butt and taken a moment to sit in her GPS, her God's plan system, if she had gone to listen, when do you use a GPS when you need direction? So God is that GPS for us. When we're in a place that's hard, when we know it's time to make a shift, when we don't know how to make the shift, when we don't understand how we're feeling. Listen, this is where I was last year as I'm recording this episode. I kept feeling like, why do I feel like this? My job is no is like I was burned out, I was bored. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I felt guilty for feeling that way. What I realized is God was disrupting me because he was telling me it's time to expand. And hence my expansion is why this podcast is here. One of the reasons. So I need you to understand these first two before I tell you number three, right? Now, this, and I kind of said this. Number three is you've got to look past what you can see. Now, the story that I love to tell here is you guys remember if you've ever been in a church anywhere, you've heard the story of the children of Israel that were in the wilderness for 40 years, going around the mountain over and over. Okay. Well, it comes a time when they're at the edge of the promised land. And here's what happens. This is in Numbers 13, 1 through 31. I didn't write this down. Numbers 13, 1 through 31 is the whole thing. I'm not going to read the whole story. I'm going to read around it, okay? So Numbers 13, 1 says, and the Lord spoke to Moses saying, send men to spy the land of Canaan, which I'm going to, excuse me, let me start over. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, send men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I'm giving to the children of Israel. From each tribe of their fathers you shall send a man, and every one a leader among them. So what Moses did was he sent 12 spies as God instructed. Okay. Now, the thing goes all through what they went through. I'm going to skip to the end. Okay. So they come back to give Moses a report. This is Numbers 13, 27 through 31 now. And this is what they said. They said, we went to the land where you sent us. It truly flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. Nevertheless, the people who dwell in the land are strong. The cities are fortified and very large. Moreover, we saw the descendants of Anak, and Anak were giants, by the way, right? And some scholars suggest that they were descendants of Goliath, by the way. Okay. Then, well, Caleb was one of the 12. Caleb and Joshua were one of the 12 spies, okay? Then Caleb quieted the people and said, hush, stop. This is verse 30. And said, let us go at once and take possession, for we are well able to overcome it. So 10 of them are saying, oh, we can't take them. We can't take this. But Caleb and Joshua said, let us go and take the land. We're able to do this. I need you to get this. Will you be one of the 10 or one of the 2? Are you going to sit in good enough because you can't see how you can do this thing? Are you going to settle for mediocre because you can't understand how you can up-level your career in the way that's rumbling in your soul? And maybe you don't even know what step to take. But I'm going to tell you, it's the GPS is going to show you the steps to take. Some of you have an inkling about it and you're like, oh, I can never do that. Right? It's interesting in our 20s how we have no preconceived notions. And so we're willing to go run after stuff in our 20s. And the more seasoned we get, because I'm not old, I'm seasoned. Let's be clear. The more seasoned we get, the harder it is for us to step out, to take a risk. What I've learned in my own career is anytime I've taken a risk, I've really, in order to up level, oftentimes I've had to risk it all to gain it all. And so when you look at the 3 steps I just walked you through, understand disruption is a start of promotion. Number 2, you need spiritual direction. And number 3, you got to look past what you can see. So to give you the summary of Esther's story, what happened? Because I know some of y'all that don't know Esther are saying to yourself, wait a minute, what happened? So as I read to you in 4, I think it was 16, she went and asked our handmaids to pray. She told Mordecai to tell all the people, all the Jews, tell everybody to pray for 3 days. So at the end of the 3 days, and this is the Cliff Note version, y'all, so read the whole version. I'm giving you the quick version. Esther throws a party for her husband. Just like, baby, I want to throw you a party. The king was like, oh, really? So she throws a dinner party. But what I love about Esther is at the end of the dinner party, she probably thought originally when she started the party, she was going to ask him at the end. But at the end, that GPS said to her, offer a second party. It doesn't say this in the Bible, but all of a sudden you create a second party at the end of the first. I believe that was God that dropped that in her spirit. So she says, I'm going to throw a party, another one party for you tomorrow. So she throws a second party. And at the end of that, her husband is like, oh my goodness, whatever you want. And she's like, well, I want to throw you a third party. Again, GPS showing up, y'all. At the end of the third party, he's like, okay, hold on, no more. I want to grant you whatever you want. It's at the end of that third party that she says to him, this is 3 days later. Now, they fasted for 3 days, and now it's 3 parties. This is 6 days later. It's like a week later. She says to her husband, so listen, I'm a Jew. I know you didn't know this, but I'm a Jew. And I've heard that Haman is trying to kill all my people. So what does her husband do? Her husband kills Haman and the very thing he crafted to kill the Jews in. So she had to risk it all to gain it all. She had to look in the face of fear. She was disrupted. She went after the GPS and kept following it along the way. The thing about a GPS, you guys, is when you use a GPS, it doesn't usually give you all the direction as it's on. You know, before you hit go, it'll give you all the direction if you look at it that way. But it usually only gives you one direction at a time. More season we get, the harder it is for us because we want to know the entire route. And God doesn't work like that. God is like, take one step and trust me. So you take the one. And then God is like, okay, now take the second step. And sometimes he'll tell you the second. Great. But he's not going to give you all the steps in the front. He just doesn't. See, God is checking your faith. He's checking, will you transform your mind to look past what you know, who you know, past your degree, your resume, all the names on lists, all the degrees, all the awards you've won. Will you look past all of that into this new version of you that I'm inviting you into? It doesn't mean none of those things that you've gone through will be wasted. After all, the Bible verse, I think it's Romans 8:28 says, all things work together for the good. Not a couple things, not some things. You know, the example I like to use when I talk about that is Michelle Obama, who was a lawyer, who got tired, was like hating being a lawyer. I read this in her book, Becoming. I think it was like in chapter 10, I think. And so she had a decision to make, just like I told you about my client earlier. And so Michelle Obama went from being a lawyer to working in public health, working in a nonprofit. Do you think all those things didn't help her be a phenomenal first lady? They did. But she didn't see first lady coming. She didn't say, oh, well, let me learn these things so it helped me become first lady. But God knew. When you follow that inkling in your heart and your soul. So, Mark, again, go back to part 1 homework if you didn't do it. I mean, by you go do it again. Or if you did do it, go do it again. Did you really write out what you really, really wanted? Or did you let what you could see limit what you could be? And for part 2 of your homework, yes, I'm giving you a part 2. So, by the way, yes, powerinyourpivot.com is where you go. So, as you do the work in this episode, I'm having you go through what I call the be, do, have formula. Now, my clients that are listening, you already know, right? So we're human beings, but we're not. We're actually human doings because we focus on what do I need to do? What do I need to do? What do I need to do? So much so that we leave our being out. And you can't have the life God has crafted and created you to have, and you can't be the person God has crafted and created you to be without being time. You need both being and doing. That's the faith and the works. So in your playbook, I'm helping you create a spiritual practice. And those of you that are saying I already have a spiritual practice, great. How do you up level it? Maybe it's time to do something different, right? So I'm sharing with you some various things to do in your playbook this week, and or in this part, I should say, and you get to choose and you can try different things out different days. But I want to encourage you over the next 30 days to either start a spiritual practice if you haven't already started one, or up level what you're already doing. So there's some days that I have Jesus time and I just read in a devotional. There's some days I read and write in my journal. There's some days that I need praise and worship music. I need to meditate and I need, right? And so I begin to walk you through what those things look like in this week's part 2 of our playbook. Okay. So powerinyourpivot.com is where you go. And this is only part 2, y'all. This is only part 2 in navigating career transitions. Listen, again, if you're going to go after something you've never done and become a version of you that you never ever saw was possible, that you never saw available to you, but then all of a sudden God drops it in your spirit and you feel like, ooh, I need to do this thing, but it's scary. It means that God is looking to expand your territory. So the question is, will you stay where you are? Will you do the work to go after it? I'm inviting you into the journey of becoming the highest and best version of who God created you to be and to do the work. That starts with you doing the work in your playbook. So powerinyourpivot.com. I look forward to wrapping up everything I share with you in part 3. So I'll see you next week. Next time for part 3, do the work. And by the way, you guys know the next 2 things I'm going to ask you, share. I always want to hear from you what you've learned because I'm not doing these episodes for me. I'm doing them for you. So I want to know what you've learned, value you've gotten out of this episode. So whether you in YouTube and you comment in the YouTube channel or go over to Facebook or Instagram. Instagram is my favorite. Instagram and comment on my post for this episode this week and tell me what you've learned in this episode. So that's number 1. Number 2, share it. Click and share this podcast because you never know who in your community needs this insight just as much as you do. All right. So with that, thank you again for joining me for this episode. I'll see you next time for part 3. Bye, y'all.